Greetings, cosmic voyagers. I'm Taboni and welcome. Today we embark on an intellectual journey guided by a rather unexpected philosopher of human nature, the legendary martial artist Bruce Lee. Now, you might know him for the one-inch punch or his iconic bee water, my friend, but delve deeper, and you'll find a mind keenly attuned to the universe of ideas. Bruce Lee's insight into the three stages of corruption is a razor-sharp reflection of how truth degrades over time. Much like a signal losing clarity across vast cosmic distances or a star's light dimming as it travels eons to reach our eyes. This isn't just about martial arts dojos or ancient philosophies, though they are excellent case studies. This concept applies perfectly to archetypes, sacred texts, and even personal wisdom. Think about it. An archetype, like the hero, begins as a potent symbol of lived experience, a distillation of countless human journeys. Sacred texts often capture moments of profound, direct revelation. And your own aha moments, those flashes of personal insight, they too are born pure. But what happens next? How does the universe, in its relentless drive towards entropy, seem to conspire against the persistence of unadulterated truth? So prepare your minds for a fascinating exploration. Let's explore Bruce Lee's vision and how it mirrors human history and the evolution of martial arts, and indeed the very way we, as sentient beings, process and transmit knowledge. We'll peer into the life cycle of an idea, from its brilliant birth to its often ossified afterlife. We're going to look at how something so vibrant, so alive, can become a mere echo, a shadow of its former self. Fasten your seatbelts. This is going to be quite the ride through the corridors of thought. Consider the birth of a star, a moment of immense energy, light, and creation. This, in many ways, mirrors the first stage in Bruce Lee's framework, the enlightening stage. This is where truth is born, not as a concept debated in dusty halls, but as a lived, breathed, direct experience. It's raw, unfiltered, and possesses an almost gravitational pull due to its authenticity. It's the universe whispering a secret directly into someone's ear, or perhaps shouting it through a profound, undeniable experience. This stage is characterized by its purity. There are no intermediaries, no interpretations clouding the lens. It's like observing the cosmos through a perfectly polished telescope, seeing the celestial bodies as they truly are, without atmospheric distortion or instrumental error. The individual who experiences this truth becomes a conduit, a living embodiment of the insight. Think of it as the initial signal, strong and clear, before any cosmic static begins to interfere. When Jesus spoke of the kingdom within, this wasn't a theological construct meticulously built over centuries. It was, by all accounts presented, a direct personal realization. It was an invitation to an inner discovery, a shift in perception available to anyone willing to look. This is the hallmark of the enlightening stage. The truth is accessible, immediate and transformative precisely because it bypasses complex doctrines and speaks directly to the core of being. Or let's journey to ancient Egypt, to the archetype of Baste. She wasn't just a cat-headed deity on a temple wall. She represented something deeply felt, an experienced inner sovereignty, the fierce protectiveness of the feminine, the agility and independence of the feline spirit. This was a truth observed in nature and internalized, a direct experience of specific potent energies that defined a culture's understanding of a fundamental aspect of life. Bruce Lee himself is a prime example. His development of Jeet Kune Do didn't spring from a committee meeting or a study of ancient, forgotten scrolls alone. It was born from his own rigorous, relentless experimentation, his direct experience in countless sparring sessions, his profound dissatisfaction with the limitations of rigid, traditional styles. He felt the inefficiency, the clunkiness, and sought something more. He discovered the fluidity of motion, the way of no way, not by reading it in a manual, but by pushing his body and mind to their limits. He observed water, its ability to adapt, to crash, to flow, and he translated that direct observation into a martial philosophy. This wasn't imitation, it was innovation forged in the crucible of personal struggle and insight. The truth of efficient, adaptable combat was lived by him. This direct experience is the bedrock of stage one. It's the scientist in the lab having that eureka moment when the data suddenly clicks into a new, coherent pattern. It's the artist who, after countless attempts, finally captures the elusive emotion on canvas, not by copying a master, but by channeling something from within. It's a deeply personal yet potentially universal phenomenon. The power of this stage lies in its lack of baggage. There are no preconceived notions, no vested interests, no established hierarchies to defend. There's only the individual and the insight, a pure resonance. This purity makes the truth incredibly potent, capable of inspiring awe and wonder, much like witnessing a supernova for the first time. Think about the initial spark of any great scientific revolution. Copernicus didn't just decide to rearrange the solar system for fun. His heliocentric model was born from a deep dissatisfaction with the overly complex Ptolemaic system and a quest for a simpler, more elegant truth that better fit his observations. It was a direct intellectual confrontation with the cosmos. The challenge, of course, is that this state of pure insight is often ephemeral, tied to the individual who first experienced it. It's like a unique stellar event, brilliant but not easily replicated or sustained without some form of transmission. And it is in this transmission that the seeds of the next stage are often sown, often with the best of intentions. The energy of this first stage is palpable. It's the untamed wilderness of an idea before it's been mapped, fenced, and turned into a national park. There's a wildness to it, a freedom that is inherently attractive and powerful. It's the source code before it's compiled and distributed with user agreements. Consider the mystics of various traditions. Their utterances, often paradoxical or poetic, stemmed from profound, direct encounters with what they perceived as ultimate reality. These weren't carefully crafted theological arguments, they were attempts to articulate the ineffable, born from a place beyond mere intellect. This is the essence of the enlightening moment. This stage is also marked by a profound humility. The individual who has touched such a truth often recognizes its vastness, its origin beyond their own ego. They see themselves more as a witness or a messenger than a creator. Bruce Lee, for all his confidence, constantly emphasized self-discovery and the shedding of conditioning. The beauty of this initial phase is its incorruptibility at that moment. It simply is. Like a newly discovered law of physics, it describes a fundamental aspect of reality as perceived by the discoverer. It's the universe, revealing a facet of itself, pristine and untarnished by subsequent human handling. The experience is often transformative for the individual. It reshapes their worldview, their understanding of themselves and their place in the cosmos. This internal transformation is a key characteristic. The truth isn't just known, it's integrated. It becomes part of their very fabric, and so this first age, the age of enlightenment, stands as a beacon. It's the point of origin, the wellspring from which all subsequent interpretations, imitations, and institutions will flow. It is the pure signal, the unadulterated insight that Bruce Lee recognized as the starting point of a grand and often tragic cycle. Now, imagine that brilliant pure signal from stage one begins its journey. Others see it. They witness the transformation in the individual. They are drawn to the power and clarity of the original insight. And what's the natural human response? Admiration, followed swiftly by the desire to replicate, to achieve that same state, to possess that same wisdom. This heralds the arrival of Bruce Lee's second stage, the imitation stage. Here, the direct, lived experience of the originator begins to fade from immediate view, replaced by attempts to copy the external manifestations of that experience. People observe the form, the techniques, the words, the rituals, but the inner spirit, the direct wellspring of the truth, is often missed. It's like trying to understand the sun by merely painting pictures of its light rather than studying the nuclear fusion at its core. This is where, as Lee might suggest, the dog mind begins to creep in. The term dog mind itself is evocative, suggesting a tendency towards uncritical acceptance, a focus on pleasing a master, the original source, or those who claim to represent it, and a replication of behavior without true understanding. It's the beginning of a subtle but crucial shift from being the truth to doing what looks like the truth. Rules begin to form. What did the originator do? How did they stand? What words did they use? These observations, initially perhaps helpful pointers, start to solidify into a prescriptive code. The fluidity of the original insight begins to congeal. Roles are defined: the teacher, the disciple, the follower. These roles create a structure, a hierarchy, even if informal at first. Consider our example of Bastet, the vibrant lived understanding of inner sovereignty and feline grace, once directly experienced, might transition into more formalized worship. Statues are commissioned not just as representations, but as objects of veneration. The cat, once a living symbol, slowly, metaphorically becomes a stone statue. Beautiful, perhaps, but fixed, immobile, and lacking the breadth of the original, wild insight. In the realm of martial arts, this is readily apparent. A master like Bruce Lee develops a revolutionary approach based on principles like adaptability and directness. His initial students might grasp the essence through direct transmission, but as time goes on and students teach students, the focus can shift from understanding the principles behind Jeet Kune Do to merely mimicking Lee's specific movements or his vocalizations. The form, the outward appearance, becomes paramount. The why gets lost, replaced by a rigid how. This isn't necessarily malicious. It often stems from a genuine desire to preserve and transmit something valuable. But the very act of trying to codify a living truth can inadvertently begin to suffocate it. It's like pressing a wildflower in a book to preserve its beauty, only to find you have a dried, lifeless specimen. Think of scientific discoveries. One scientist has a breakthrough. Others, quite rightly, try to replicate the experiment. But if they only follow the written method meticulously without understanding the underlying principles, they might struggle to adapt if conditions change slightly, or they might miss opportunities for further related discoveries. The spirit of inquiry can be overshadowed by the letter of the protocol. The imitation stage is a delicate dance between preservation and petrification. There's a genuine effort to honor the original insight, but the tools of honor often involve simplification and standardization, processes that can strip away nuance and dynamism. The focus shifts from the internal experience to external conformity. This stage is where schools of thought begin to emerge. Disciples of the original visionary start to interpret and explain, and slight variations in their understanding or emphasis can lead to divergent paths. These paths, while perhaps initially subtle, can eventually lead to very different destinations, all claiming lineage from the same source. The energy of this second stage is different. It's less about the wild, untamed fire of creation and more about carefully tending a flame, trying to keep it from going out. But in this careful tending, there's a risk of building such high walls around the flame to protect it from the wind that it eventually runs out of oxygen. This is also where the telephone game effect starts to become noticeable. Each transmission, each act of imitation can introduce small distortions, subtle misunderstandings. Over generations of imitation, the original message can become significantly altered, even if everyone involved believes they are faithfully preserving it. The danger here is the subtle shift from understanding to belief. In stage 1, the truth is known through experience. In stage 2, it often becomes something one believes in, based on the authority or charisma of those who are imitating the original source, or based on the perceived efficacy of the copied forms. The focus on external mimicry can lead to a kind of spiritual or intellectual materialism. Instead of seeking the inner kingdom, one might focus on accumulating techniques, reciting mantras perfectly, or adhering to dietary laws with exacting precision, believing these external actions are the path rather than signposts. Bruce Lee was acutely aware of this. He often spoke out against the classical mess, the rigid, stylized forms of traditional martial arts that, in his view, had lost their connection to the reality of combat. He saw them as collections of imitated movements, detached from the living principles of effectiveness. So the imitation stage is a crucial and perhaps unavoidable step in the journey of an idea. It's born out of admiration and a desire to share, but it carries within it the seeds of dilution and rigidity. The living, breathing truth starts to acquire a more defined and therefore more limited form, like a river being channeled into a concrete canal. Now we arrive at the third and in many ways most formidable stage in Bruce Lee's cycle of corruption, the institutionalization stage. This is where the imitation which began organically becomes systematized, codified, and often tragically ossified. The living spirit, already diluted in stage 2, now risks being entombed within rigid structures. Here the rules and roles that began to form in the imitation stage are solidified into laws, doctrines, and elaborate hierarchies. Religions, formal academies, governing bodies, and even empires can arise, all built around the now distant memory or the carefully curated image of the original insight. The focus shifts dramatically from experiencing the truth to managing and defending the institution that claims to represent it. The cat statue we spoke of earlier is no longer just a statue. It's now enshrined in a grand temple, with prescribed rituals for its veneration, a priesthood to interpret its significance, and theological treatises written about its every symbolic feature. The original wild insight of Bastit's feline sovereignty is now buried under layers of dogma and institutional inertia. Gurus, preachers, high priests, and grandmasters emerge not necessarily as living embodiments of the original truth, but as guardians of the established system. Their authority often derives not from direct personal experience of the core insight, but from their position within the institution, their mastery of its doctrines, and their ability to enforce its rules. The institution itself becomes the object of veneration. Judgment replaces experience. Instead of encouraging individuals to seek their own direct connection to the truth, the institution often sets itself up as the sole arbiter of what is true and what is heresy. Conformity to the institution's interpretation becomes paramount, and deviation is often met with censure, exclusion, or worse. The open inquiry of stage one is gone. Fear replaces wonder. The awe and inspiration of the original insight, which drew people in with its beauty and power, can be supplanted by a fear of transgressing the institution's rules, a fear of divine punishment, or a fear of social ostracism. The motivation for adherence shifts from love of truth to fear of consequences. Consider the evolution of martial arts styles. What began with a founder's unique, combat-tested insights can, over centuries, become a rigid system of katas and techniques practiced without an understanding of their original application. Grandmasters may preside over organizations that are more concerned with preserving lineage and tradition, as they define it, than with fostering genuine martial effectiveness or individual expression. The art becomes a museum piece. This is where, as Bruce Lee might have put it, the finger pointing at the moon is mistaken for the moon itself. The institution, the doctrines, the rituals, these were originally intended to point towards a deeper truth. But in stage 3, people begin to worship the finger, forgetting to look at the celestial body it was meant to indicate. The energy of this stage is one of preservation at all costs, often leading to stagnation. Innovation is viewed with suspicion, as it threatens the established order. The primary goal becomes the perpetuation of the institution itself, even if that institution has long since lost its connection to the vibrant, living truth it was founded upon. It's like a ship whose crew is so busy maintaining the ship's structure that they forget their original destination. Think of great philosophical or spiritual movements. The founder has a profound realization. Disciples gather and try to capture it, stage 2. Then, generations later, you have complex theological systems, inquisitions, schisms, and power struggles, all ostensibly in the name of that original simple insight. The message of love can become a pretext for war. The institution develops its own immune system, designed to reject anything that doesn't conform to its established identity. This makes genuine reform, or a return to the original spirit, incredibly difficult. The structure is designed to resist change, to maintain its current form, much like a crystal lattice resists deformation. Personal wisdom, too, can fall into this trap on an individual level. An insight you had in your youth, a profound personal truth, can become a rigid belief system you defend fiercely in your old age, even if circumstances have changed and the original context is lost. You institutionalize your own past epiphanies. The irony is that these institutions often claim to be the sole protectors of the truth, when in reality they may be the primary obstacles to its direct experience. They offer a packaged, pre-digested version demanding allegiance to the package rather than encouraging a personal quest for the contents. Bruce Lee's critique of classical styles was precisely this. He saw them as stage 3 manifestations. They had become so concerned with their own forms, their lineages, their specific correct ways of doing things that they had become ineffective and limiting. He advocated for breaking free from these institutionalized limitations to rediscover the living essence of combat. This stage is characterized by a loss of dynamism and an increase in complexity, not the beautiful complexity of a living ecosystem, but the cumbersome complexity of bureaucracy. The focus shifts from the individual's transformative journey to the collective's adherence to a static code. The vibrant river of Stage 1, channeled in Stage 2, now risks becoming a stagnant pond in Stage 3, choked with weeds of dogma. Ultimately, the institutionalization stage represents the furthest remove from the original pure insight. The truth is no longer a lived experience, but an abstract concept, managed, controlled, and often exploited by an established power structure. The dead shell of the original insight, as the brief eloquently states, is all that remains, meticulously preserved and fiercely defended. So, we've journeyed through Bruce Lee's rather insightful, if somewhat sobering, model of how truth can evolve, or perhaps devolve, over time. Bruce Lee's 3 stages of corruption offer a profound lens through which we can view the evolution of truth and wisdom, not just in grand historical narratives or spiritual traditions, but in our own lives, in the way we learn and the way we form beliefs. It's a cosmic pattern, in a way, reflecting a universal tendency towards increasing entropy, where initial order and clarity can give way to complexity and sometimes confusion. From the pure, unadulterated insight of the enlightening stage, through the earnest but often flawed imitation stage to the rigid and often self-serving institutionalization stage, understanding these phases helps us reclaim the essence of original truths. It equips us with a critical eye, allowing us to question whether we are engaging with a living principle or merely venerating an empty shell. It encourages us to seek the why behind the what, to dig deeper than the surface forms and prescribed rituals. This isn't a call to abandon all tradition or structure, far from it. But it is an invitation to approach them with awareness, to constantly ask if they still serve the vibrant truth they were meant to embody. The universe is constantly revealing itself. Our quest is to keep our senses, our minds, and our hearts open to that direct revelation. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time and wisdom. Keep looking up and keep questioning. I'm Taboni.